Yes, we are. We're going to use Photoshop today. So, hello and good evening, everyone. The session is being recorded now. Carla just asked me the best question of the evening. What program are we going to use? Are we going to use Photoshop? And the answer is yes. So, this is the second half of the semester. I know we went 1 week in already with an extra class of Illustrator. I didn't want to start Photoshop and then we have a break in between. I'd rather start Photoshop on a straight streak going forward. So from now on, it's going to be all Photoshop right to the end of the semester. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and let's start with the basics. I'm going to have to also ask you to install Adobe Photoshop on your computers. Okay, so make sure you have it ready for Wednesday at least. So when I see you in person, if you have any questions, we're going to go over some of the tools and stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and share my screen now. As we wrapped up the Illustrator module, the last class was 7. 8 was like the overall review. You want to get into the Photoshop module, which should be visible to you by now. The main projects are the application splash banner was completed. I'm going to have a chance to mark all your stuff this week, so you should be getting your midterm grades from all your classes. The next big project you're going to create for Photoshop for me is the web page design prototype. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change the due date for that one right now. Look, it's Friday the 13th. So obviously that was last year. I have to change the date to, I'm going to aim for the 6th of April. Okay. I'm going to make this visible to you as well. So your last project for this class in Photoshop is to create a website mock-up design. A lot of designers do the same thing, and then not only that, we'll then convert the website into an HTML version. I'm not gonna do the HTML part. Um, the other teachers are doing plenty of that with you, I'm sure, with JavaScript, HTML, CSS. But I will show you how to convert a Photoshop file, a design file for a browser, or how to execute the actual um, delivery file formats and the optimization for the website, okay? The image assets and all the other elements that go into it. So that's the last project. And the main reason why we're learning these design programs is for you to help you reach the overall execution on your website projects, right? And there's no point doing web development if you can't do design. Hence why this is WDDM, web development and design. Okay. In between, you'll be getting some assignments along the way. So this is your Photoshop assignments. I'm going to make them visible. You have two assignments. The first one's going to be a social media advertising. And as you know, this is the most popular thing these days. I mean, people are becoming millionaires by creating social media content for many different platforms. We're going to target probably Facebook and Instagram, but if you want to get into the videos and TikToks and stuff, it's just a lot of the thing is mostly, people self-publish, not the most creative things, but the work that goes into it becomes the center of the content. For us, it'll be obviously design influenced. So things like Facebook advertising, designing and stuff, we're going to cover that all in Photoshop. So this will be due, I'm just going to change the date for now. We're going to get the particulars a little later, of course. All right, so this one's, I think I'm going to aim for this one by the, I think 24th. Okay, we'll talk about this more a little later. So this is going to be the social media advert. The next assignment you're going to get is a motion design we're going to do an actual animation. This is more dynamic, so it's going to be a little more, like motion design. So you're going to learn the basics animations in Photoshop by creating animated GIFs and movies, like short animated movies for advertisements and other type of video or animation deliveries. So that'll be another part of the web production segment in Photoshop we're going to cover later. I'm going to keep that hidden for now. I'd rather keep it, simple and not overwhelm you with too many things at once. So I'm going to also release this right now. This is the introduction to Photoshop. These are your lesson files. You're going to have those visible as well. And this is your digital NFT abstract design. NFTs were very popular. Again, people made like a lot of money doing this. It was tied in with cryptocurrencies, and they made these digital graphics, or NFTs as they're called. Um, you know, and then basically, they sold them for lots of money, and we're gonna make one of those just for fun, and you're gonna upload that one onto this collaboration um, collaboration area that I made. Okay. And this is some of the things that we're going to create. This is an abstract design that we're going to make today, and you're going to upload this. Okay. This is your design discussion. Okay. That's the word I was looking for. Design discussion. We'll do this from time to time going forward, just to have more collaboration with the class. Okay. It's because we're going to have the online classes we do on Mondays, the in-person lab on Wednesdays, and we'll do some more of these collaborations. So this is one for today. This is the lesson files. These lesson files will carry us throughout the next few weeks. So make sure you download this. You simply click on the lesson files and you download this selection.zip folder onto your computer. So do that right now. I have to repeat it again. You need a mouse for this class, so make sure you invest in a good mouse. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time creating selections and other more advanced type of technical stuff. All right. And then class 9 is the Facebook advert, which we're going to create next time I see you. Okay, so we're going to create the Facebook ad. Probably maybe even Wednesday we'll start this. I like to compress my lessons in the beginning so you have more time later to do work and get things done. So we might even cover this on Wednesday. I'll just fill things out, okay? So again, let's start with class number 8, lesson files, okay? And we're going to download this digital NFT abstract as well. Not download it. This is when you click on it, you can upload your work for today. Let's see if. Okay, the other files are there. Perfect. All right. Any questions so far? I think we're good to go. As I said earlier, you do need Adobe Photoshop in order to partake in this class, of course, as you did get Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Photoshop is part of the Creative Cloud package. You simply click on your Photoshop icon to open Adobe Photoshop 2025. This is the latest version. Every time they make a new version of Photoshop, I'm quite astonished of the level of detail they add, or tools or techniques. So as it is right now, I think we have one of the best versions known yet. It's a really good time to learn the software, as there's plenty of AI integrated features that really do some cool things. And also with inherited design tools and techniques from previous versions. I've used Photoshop personally myself for over 20 years. I've used it since the earlier years, before it became a package like a Creative Cloud, even before it became a Creative Suite. So I've seen it evolve myself over the years. And every time I, teach Photoshop, it reminds me of the good old days when I used to learn Photoshop. And maybe perhaps why I enjoy teaching it is because I can really explain the fundamentals, like when I can put myself in your shoes, basically learning the software from scratch. Um, so I hope you guys will have fun going forward, and let's get started. So let's start with the fundamentals of Photoshop. We're going to create a new document to begin with. Click on New File, Photoshop has a vast array of options for you to start with. Look at all the different industries it caters to. This is called the most recent tab. You have saved tab for those of you that save documents. You have the photo tab. You have the print tab, the art and illustration, the web, the mobile, and the film and video. Look at all the industries it caters to. My computer seems a little stuck, so I'm going to have to just maybe restart my program for a second. I am doing too many things at once. I'm sharing my screen here. I'm going to quit Photoshop and relaunch it. Sometimes when these things happen, it happened to me in Illustrator earlier as well. Just have to relaunch the application and usually things get resolved. I'm also burning my resources here by sharing a screen, recording my video while I'm using Photoshop. This takes quite significant amount of RAM on your computer to process all this. Even though if you have the fastest computer, it still eats up a lot of resources. So having said that, just give me some time to get this thing all set up here. I didn't even ask if you can hear me because maybe sometimes the computer freezes back and forth. Make sure everybody's still there. I'm gonna have to force quit by pressing Command Option Escape. And let me stop sharing my screen for a second. Thanks. We'll try this one more time. Let's see if perhaps I'll do window instead of screen. I'll stick with screen. Right. And then I'll do Photoshop. I should quit these other programs because I'm not using them. This is hey, look, it's the Photoshop splash banner app screen. Remember we did one for Illustrator? That's the Photoshop one. All right. Can you guys see my screen, by the way? If you can, just simply speak out. If you can, that's good. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Asman. So I'm going to click on New File here. And as I was trying to explain earlier, Photoshop caters to various industries, from photo to print. Print is very popular, of course. Art and illustration, which is more like a creative type of approach to designing. For web, which we're going to use it for web development and design. Mobile, which is these days it's even more important than web design because people browse the internet on their phones more than their computers. So whatever you do right now for web, you have to make sure it's compliant with mobile as well. And film and video, which we're going to create animations for YouTube and other video formats. So Photoshop does a lot of interesting things. It's packed with multi techniques and methods of getting things produced visually for online and for print. Okay, so what we're going to do is to get started is we're going to go nice and easy. We're going to go to art and illustration, which is measured in pixels, and we're going to create our own pixel playground. We're going to make it 1,000 pixels wide by 1,000 pixels tall. We're going to use a resolution of 72 pixels. We don't need to go 300. Photoshop relies heavily on resolution. As you increase resolution, you increase quality. Just like when you do like that 2K, 4K, 8K comparison when you watch movies or film, as you know, 4K is better than 2K, right? Or HD, I should say. 8K is even better, like quadruple the size of 4K, which if you watch a lot of film and movies produced in that high quality, the level of detail is quite high and better than the previous predecessor, right? So you always have to measure these high resolution graphics in comparison to previous ones to determine the difference. So this is going to be 1K, 1000 by 1000. We don't need to do 4K, 8K. If it was, we'd make this 4000 or 8000. The more pixels, the better the resolution, but the bigger the file size. So you want to measure your approach on this and make sure you don't overdo it, but make sure you don't underdo it as well. Okay, so this in this case, if we're doing a website, we go to web and we go to the most common. I like to use web large size and go 1920 by 1080p. That would be my approach to this. Okay, but since we're not doing websites yet, we're going to stick with art and illustration, and we're going to do 1000 pixels, 1000 pixels. The only thing I'll change the resolution. This is good for printing. When you print packaging or magazines or other type of covers, 300 pixels per inch is quite good when it comes to detail. But if you're going to do things on the websites or a monitor, you're going to stick with 72. 72 is for on-screen presentations, projectors, PowerPoints, and things like that. So 72, RGB color mode. We're not printing. We're going to stick with RGB. And lastly, we're just going to hit the background color will be white. We can change any other color if we wish, or simply click on the color here and pick a color from the color picker. But like I said, this is good for now. Just hit create. Make sure it's pixels, by the way, not 1000 inches, because that'll be humongous, right? Like 72,000 pixels. That'll be ridiculous. So keep it at 1000, 1000, hit create, and we're going to make our first document. All right, so here's a blank canvas in front of us. And what better way to explore Photoshop than to learn the fundamentals of how the program behaves, the program's interface, and the methodology behind Photoshop's core principles. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to also first show you the interface here. I'm going to ask all of you to go to Window, Workspace. I believe in a very, very user-friendly workspace. It's like anything, whether you drive a car, use a program, use a phone. If you're not comfortable with the app, with the apparatus, it's not going to make it that convenient and easy for you to use. So the first thing is let's make this interface nice and user-friendly. We're going to stick with Essentials default, okay? That'll give you the best of everything. If you want to name it or do a custom default, you can. As you can see, I saved other defaults layouts, but if you go to Essentials default, it'll give you just that. I'm gonna maybe reset mine just to make it look like yours. So reset Essentials is what I'll do, and you'll have something that looks like this right now, all of you following my lead. This will give you the best of everything, which means the tools are elongated in a single column. That's one thing I'm not a fan of. So I'm going to ask you to click over here in the top corner beside the little house here, the little arrow here, to extend this to 2 columns. I do recall asking you to do this in Illustrator as well. It's a lot easier for me to communicate the tools this way to you, as you can see the nice 2 columns established the way they are, with a clear view of the foreground and background colors. Very important to visualize this. Whereas if you had it like this, it's hard to explain and point things out as I normally would. And traditionally, Photoshop always looked like this up until, the mid 2000 and something, 2010 or 12. I can't remember. Going over here, these are your main properties up here. So whatever you select or engage in on the main screen, this is your canvas. The properties here will prompt you to do, some changes or numerical entries and things like that. Moving over to the right, this is where all the panels are for additional input options. Okay, so here you have here you can do properties, adjustments, libraries, different palettes. You have your colors here, your swatches. Here you have your layers. Layers are the most integral part of using Adobe Photoshop. All right, without layers and selections, the program is not as creative, or it won't be as categorized as such to be the mother of all programs if it wasn't for those two key ingredients. It's like salt and pepper for chefs, okay? Without salt and pepper, you can't really have much food to cook with, unless people like the bland taste of food, okay? Maybe not the best analogy, but you get my drift, right? Selections and layers is what makes Photoshop, okay? Otherwise, you'd be doing basic color correction stuff that photographers do using, um, um, the other parts of the Photoshop program. Right. So let's go to, I'm going to simplify this a little bit. I was going to say Adobe Lightroom. That's the one that was kind of on the tip of my tongue. So Lightroom is another version of Photoshop that does advanced color correction for photography. And if you've done photography before, you probably know what I'm talking about. If not, a lot of the core tools are part of Photoshop anyways, without the use of Lightroom and raw footage. So you're still kind of, okay by using Photoshop alone. I'm going to double click on the properties here because I don't really need the properties yet. Okay. And I don't need the colors. Well, maybe I do actually. I'll double click, opens it up, single click, closes it. Okay. So close, open. If you want to drag the palette out, you can simply do that. To drag it back in, you simply do this. Okay. You should always keep this tucked in. It's just easier for you to navigate this way. Okay. Just make some more real estate by doing that. These are your layers. Notice how I made a lot of room for my layers. A lot of time when you work with projects, you're going to keep adding layers and more layers as you move along this way. So you want to keep this area nice and open. These are your tools, properties, document, all ready to go. As a matter of fact, it's such an important thing that I would ask you to go under Window, Workspace, and you can actually go ahead and save this workspace. The terminology, instead of save, it's called new. New means you're saving this exact workspace that you're looking at. So by clicking new, you're saving this as a new workspace. Does that make sense? So if you click on new workspace, you can call this my current workspace. I'll call it March 10th, 2025, whatever, right? So now if you go over here, there's my my current workspace, March 10th, 2025. You can always switch between different workspaces. Let's say I go to painting. Okay, this painting workspace. I'm going to go back to my current workspace, March 10th, 2025. Easily back and forth. Once we have the workspace established, let's explore the program now. So as I mentioned before, these are your main tools. These are your properties. These are your palettes. The most core fundamental part of the program is learning selections. Without selections, Photoshop is pretty much useless. So you would go to this marquee selection tool. There's a few of them. They're all near the top of the tool location. If yours looks a little different, it's because of your preferences, but nonetheless, they're all easily identifiable. So here you have the most basic rectangular and elliptical marquee selection tools. Here you have the lasso and selection brush tool and polygon. These are the more particular, more methodical selection tools. And here you have the more advanced, quick, easy, executable selection tools. So in a nutshell, you have three sets. You have this one, and that one. And this is your move tool. This is like remember in Illustrator, we had like that black arrow tool. This is how you move things. If I play a quick little tutorial.
The Move tool is an essential part of Photoshop, allowing you to move not only individual layers, but entire groups. This makes it a powerful tool for organizing and arranging your workspace. With the Move tool, you can also rotate, skew, and scale your selections. Just make sure the Show Transform Controls options in the options bar is enabled. Once enabled, you'll see transform handles around the corners of your selection. Click and drag these handles to modify your selection. And don't forget, you can quickly access the Move tool at any time by pressing V on your keyboard. The Move tool also has an auto select feature, which allows you to easily switch between selecting layers and groups. To use this feature, simply enable the auto select checkbox in the options bar and choose either layer or group in the drop-down menu. For more precise adjustments, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to nudge elements in small increments. And here's an advanced tip. Hold down the Shift key while dragging an element with the Move tool to constrain its movement to a straight line, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally.
I like using these tips. They really did a nice job with these. So if you ever want to get stuck on these, I just closed my document down. Oops. If you ever want to get a quick little tutorial on these things, just play the little videos and you're good to go. Just gonna bring my document back. 72, 1000, 1000 pixels, RGB color, white background. I gotta remember not to hit Command W because I'm in screen preview mode. All right, so yeah, that's the Move tool, okay? So any other tool you want help with, just simply roll over, watch the tutorial, press the play button.
The marquee tools are used specifically to create
Here's another one.
rectangular or elliptical selections on your image. They're one of the many ways to create selections in Photoshop. To use the marquee tools, simply select them from the toolbar or press M as your keyboard shortcut. Next, click and drag over the area you want to select. You can use the marquee tools to move and transform your selection as well. If you want to constrain your aspect ratio, creating a perfect square or circle, simply hold down the Shift key while dragging. To move your selection while creating it, hold down the spacebar. Move it to the desired location, let go of the spacebar, and apply the transformation. If you want to draw out from the center as you drag, hold down the Alt or the Option key. After you make a marquee selection, you can copy, paste to a new layer, delete, duplicate, or apply effects or adjustments. This gives you the ability to manipulate your selections and create unique images.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, that's another good way of explaining to you how these tools work. Okay, so I'm not going to do this for every tool, but enough to get you familiar with how these little tutorials work. Okay, so basically, let's start with the rectangular marquee tool. And I want you to do this, okay? Click and drag the mouse, okay? So this makes a rectangular selection. It's different than Illustrator because you're selecting pixels. You're selecting pixels inside an image. In this case, we have a white background, so there's nothing really there except the selection. But what I want to do is get you familiar with, how the selections work and how to mentally understand what you're doing. So if you make a selection and your mouse is inside the selection, and if you click and drag the mouse, what you're doing is you're moving the selection. Now, don't confuse this selection tool with the Move tool. That's how you move layers. This is how you move selections. So as soon as you move the mouse inside, you're just moving or adjusting the selection. When you click outside, you deselect the selection. Okay, so if you click accidentally, you lose a selection. So be consciously aware what you're doing at any given time. So again, click does nothing. Okay, but if you click and drag, you're making a rectangular selection. If you click away, you're deselecting the selection. I want you to do this 5 times right now. So click and drag, click away, click and drag, click away. Trust me, it's like mental exercise. This will build your muscles in your brain to know how this works. And this way you won't struggle. Okay, so click, click away, or click inside, move. Click away, click inside, move, click away, right? Next, so let's do this now. Next is the elliptical. If you hold the mouse, you can hold other tools like the elliptical. This one is like any elliptical shape, but if you hold Shift, it does perfect circles. Again, inside moves it, outside closes it. So practice that a few times. And then the columns, don't worry about it. They're just simply, they do like vertical or horizontal lines. Okay, so they're not really that used, okay, I'll be honest with you. But these are the most common ones, rectangular, elliptical. So having said that, let's put these to use now. I want you to go ahead and draw a rectangular shape like this. Only this time, we're going to hold Shift, and Shift adds more. So you're going to add another one on top of that one, and another one on top of this one, and another one on top of that one, and so on and so forth. You're going to add more of these shapes. Notice how if you overlap them, they add to the area, Shift. If you hold Option or Alt, it'll subtract from the area. So Option is subtract, Shift is add, okay? Now if I switch my way over to the elliptical marquee tool, I'll do the same thing. With Shift, I'm going to add. Oh, I have a feather on. I do apologize. I didn't expect this. Feather should not be there. Feather just makes the pixel soft. I'll talk about that another time. But I'm just doing this, okay? And if you hold Option, you're subtracting the area. So Option subtracts, Shift adds. Some kind of an abstract design will work. Okay, and again, if you go inside, you're moving it. If you click away, you deselect this. So don't let all this hard work go to waste, rather than keep your eyes on the prize. And what you do once you have a selection established, such as this random one that we did, because trust me, nobody in the world has this but you now, because it's so, a cup of last minute kind of spontaneous design. So we're going to go under the Edit menu, and we're going to go to Fill. Once we fill this, we're going to ask to fill it either with a color. So you got to click on this little pop-up menu, the content. Foreground color will give you the black over here. Background color will give you the white. Or you can just pick color to choose a color of your choice. I'm going to go ahead and choose color and pick any color of my choice. I'm going to go with nice and bright green here just to brighten things up. Click OK. So I chose a green from color. And I'm going to make it normal blend, 100% opacity. Basically, leave this alone. Press OK. And now I'm going to have this green color. But because I have this feather, it gave me that. I have this thing feather 50. So please ignore that for now. Let's just keep going here. I don't want to go back and forth. But it's interesting how the feathering was intermittent halfway through. Okay, very good. We can add a few more things now. If I hold the, let's say Shift. Just draw a few little circles and some targets. Just did a few shift selections here. Notice how my selections are on top of this design. So if I go to Edit Fill again, I can choose a different color just by clicking color and go with a nice orange or yellow. Click OK and click OK again to do that. Right? So selections and filling is how you can do this nice and easy. Now, another thing apart from selection is to fill is to use the paint bucket. The paint bucket is the most common fundamental fill tool in every paint program. And Photoshop is a paint program, which means everything you do in Photoshop is pixels. Look at this. See? It's all pixels. Just like images, you're in a digital imaging environment. So if I go to the paint bucket, and it's hidden between the gradient and the paint bucket. Let's press the play button here quickly. What's this one going to give us here?
The paint bucket tool in Photoshop is a convenient feature for filling areas of your image with a solid color or pattern. This tool is perfect for quickly changing backgrounds, adding color to shapes, or filling in selections. To access the Paint Bucket tool, press G on the keyboard or find it in the toolbar. Make sure you have the right layers selected in the Layers panel, or choose All Layers in the Options bar if you want to sample from all layers. Before using the Paint Bucket tool, select the desired color or pattern in the Options bar. Click on an area of your image with the Paint Bucket tool to fill it with a color or pattern. If you want to fill non-adjacent areas with a color or pattern, uncheck the contiguous option in the options bar. Adjust the tolerance to determine how much of your image will be filled with a color or pattern. The lower the tolerance number, the more exact the color match will be, and the higher the tolerance number, the more of your image will be filled.
Okay, so basically that's exactly how it works, except he went a little further with this tolerance stuff. I wouldn't overwhelm you right now. The way it works is it traces color. So if I pick a red right here, or if I pick a red right here, right? And I click inside this yellow circle, Photoshop will automatically understand the boundaries between the yellow and the green and the white. So if I click here, it's only gonna fill the yellow. You understand? But if you accidentally click on the white background, it'll fill the whole background white. So be careful where to click, where not to click. I just press Command Z, by the way. So if I click on a few random circles, that's exactly what Photoshop is going to do. I'm going to go to swatches and pick a color this way. Maybe perhaps this blue color here. Pick a few blue ones. And I'll pick a few pink ones. And I'll leave those yellow. Okay. If I want to change my mind, I can always go yellow, choose the yellow again. Okay. You can go back and forth. I'll press undo. And if I click on the green, I wanted to make it, I don't know, maybe a brighter green or something. I can just click on the green like that. It's a little too bright. So I'm going to press Command Z. So the paint bucket basically fills areas with boundaries. So it knows the boundary between this and this. So if you click here, it'll fill that. If you click over here, it'll fill that. So it's very simple. Just like most paint programs, if you ever used one before, that's how basically it works. I'm going to go with the black background and just click on the white to make a nice black background. Maybe I'll do this gray to fill these gray parts. That's from the feather. I think I have the mistake there. I'll just leave it alone, not a big deal. So there's my abstract fill design. And trust me, doing this basic exercise will make you that much more comfortable using the fundamental basics of Adobe Photoshop. So do this as many times. Practice filling selections, go to edit fill and just shift option, do different things, do this back and forth. And I promise you, you're going to be that much more comfortable doing the Photoshop basics. Now, the next thing is I'm going to use back to the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to ask you to select an area from the top here. Notice how I'm zooming out, Command minus, Command plus, or Control minus, Control plus of the document. Oh, I just pressed Command delete by accident. I'm going to press Command Z, which is undo. Look, edit, undo, redo, undo. You can go back in time. Speaking of back in time, I can open up what's called I was going to call it the time machine, the history. And if you look at the history, I can go back in time when I started the lesson. You see that? And this is the most current time right here. So that's how you can control undo, redo steps. Okay. So undo, redo, back in time. So I'm going to ask you to zoom out, Command minus or Command plus, and select the top half of this design that we created. Top half. And I'm going to ask you to do something really out of the ordinary. I'm going to go to image adjustments. This is how you adjust colors in Photoshop. Simply, we're going to go to invert. Invert means do the opposite of what the colors may appear. Black becomes white, green becomes yellow, right? Red becomes green and that kind of stuff. So if you do invert, it's exactly what's going to happen. Okay. And then if I do, let's do the left half here like that. And if I do invert again, the shortcut is Command I. So you can do something like this, right? You can also change the colors and do some other measures if you wish. Perhaps let me just press Command Z. Instead of that, I'll do image adjustments. Instead of invert, I'll do what's called hue and saturation, another common popular area for Photoshop designers to come and change colors this way. So you can just change the hue color to get another color design. Okay. So now we have a real abstract design, element here that we made from scratch using selections and colors and fills, all the very fundamental stuff that Photoshop can do. Just a touch of creativity here. I'm going to use another elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to hold Shift and draw a perfect circle like that. But the difference is I'm going to feather this. So I'm going to deselect, feather. Remember in the beginning, it made those soft little edges. So I'm going to feather this to 20 pixels, 20 px. Okay. So that means if I just make a selection like this, and if I go edit fill, let me fill it yellow, just so you can see, right? That's what, see how the edges are feathered? That's what's going to happen, okay? Just so you know. So I'm going to press Command Z. Now that you know how feather works, so it's not too sharp, it's softer on the edges. And you don't have to use feather unless you really need to, but otherwise I don't really use feather, right? So in this case, I'll leave it feathered. I'm going to go to filter. And if I want to wow my students on the first day of Photoshop, a lot of teachers go filter. They go filter crazy and they do all these fancy Photoshop filters on images to do a lot of these cool things, which you can do. Some apps even copy this Photoshop filter gallery and they do a lot of results on your phone. But let me just go right down to the more mechanical ones, which is under distort. And I'm going to do what's called twirl. Twirl will create a twirling effect of my selection, capturing all these colors and giving me that twirling motion. So that's a distort twirl design. So that's a filter. So if I go to twirl, and if I spin this way or that way, counterclockwise or clockwise, you'll see the twirl take effect. I would go anywhere from, 704, for example. And if I zoom out, it's going to give me that nice twirl finish. So if I go ahead and click OK, and then deselect, there's my unique NFT design. And trust me, nobody in the world probably has this digital footprint that I just created, which what makes it unique, like an identifier, like a QR code or something very unique. I'll bet what you made, nobody has either, right? Because everyone that does this is basically very, on a whim. Okay, we'll do it spontaneously, and you get my drift, right? It's very unique. Now let's look at Photoshop file formats. Now that I gave you the basic introduction of selections and colors and fills and a basic orientation of the interface, and this is really important that you practice this. And later on, you'll see how integral this is into, putting Photoshop to more intermediate and advanced use. So what happens when you're done with a drawing like this or a design? And we did this from scratch. We didn't use any images. We didn't use any graphics. We didn't use any AI. We used nothing but our skill and the Photoshop fundamental techniques of selections and colors. Okay. We didn't even use layers because we'll save that for another time. What we're going to do now is we're going to save this as a Photoshop document. So when you do your work in Photoshop, very important that you save the native format. So when you do save as, you can select on your computer or you can save it on the cloud. I'm going to go to the desktop. I'm going to call it abstract NFT 001 because I want to make maybe like 1,000 or something. So I'm using the 20 precursor nomenclature. I'm going to save it as a Photoshop format onto the desktop. I'm going to hit the save button, and that's what's going to happen. Now, if I want to share this on social media, or I want to send this to my friends and family, unfortunately, they can't open Photoshop. Only us, the designers, can open a Photoshop document. You need a special software to open up Photoshop files. So then how would you share this on social media and other avenues of presenting your work? Well, what you have to do is use a more common user-friendly format. And that's the one we did earlier with another ones. Like, let's say you want to put this on a website, then you would go save a copy, and then you would go ahead and save it as a JPEG, which is a Joint Photographic Export Group extension. You can also use a PNG, which you're all familiar with, to retain transparencies and other things. You can also use a WebP, which is a new, really incredible web production format, which gives you the same quality but a smaller file size. This wasn't available before. Now it is. So it's really, really nice to see it here. Before you couldn't even open WebP files in Photoshop. Now you can. So that's something else we'll look at. But these are the main two: PNG, you know, GIF, animated GIF. Okay. We have no animation, so it doesn't make sense to save GIF. Plus, it's limited to 256 colors. So you don't want to do that just yet. What you want to do is you want to go for the, in this case, I would go with a good old JPEG. A JPEG will give you exactly what you need. Okay. And you can save it as a compressor, a compressed format under the desktop here. You can control the quality to maximum, which is 12. And the format option is baseline standard, which is what you want to stick with. Optimize and progressive is for older browsers when they took a while to interpolate the images. So we're going to stick with this one here for now. Click OK. And then that's now saved as a JPEG where your destination is with the Photoshop file. So keep in mind, takeaway here, save the Photoshop file, then save the JPEG file after. So if I minimize this, what you'll see here is here's the PSD and here's the JPEG. You can see by the extension what each one is. This one you can open up with any browser, any email clients, any social media channel. You can upload this and share it with the whole world. And this is the Photoshop file, which only you and me can open and edit and work with in the Photoshop environment. How big are these files? Well, this one is, the Photoshop file is 244 kilobytes, which is not bad. And the JPEG is 455 kilobytes. Usually it's smaller, but because of the nature of the colors and the integration of what we did, it's a little bigger than the original Photoshop document. But mainly when you add layers and stuff in Photoshop, this becomes quadruple the size of this. So it's a little unorthodox in this example, but just so you know, going forward, Photoshop's the bigger format in most cases, especially when you add layers and other things. I'm just gonna close this window here and this one to show you how to produce this. So now that we're doing this, the whole point of the design challenge is for you to go here and I want to see your work, okay, in this exercise to see your participation, okay? So you're going to go under your, your digital illustration imaging folder here under content, and you're going to go to today's lesson, which is starting the Photoshop module. You're going to go to the Class 8 Introduction to Photoshop, which is today. These are your lesson files that I added in there. So download these because we'll start those. This one will start on Wednesday. We're going to use this lesson file. Okay. So Wednesday's that file that we're going to go into. Today was like an introductory lesson. I know Wednesday's a lab, but I have to do my lessons first, even in the lab time. So please come to class Wednesday. We're going to do another class, okay? And then next week, we'll give you time to work on your assignments. I'll give you a lab on that Wednesday. So this one we'll cover on Wednesday. And this is what we're doing today as an introduction. So click on this file here, or the link, I should say. And this is what I did last semester. So I'm going to go ahead and upload another response. So you're going to do the same when you log in. Click on response, click on attachments, select your JPEG that you made, the NFT file for the exercise, open it, click on view. Well, leave it alone as default. Just click save and simply hit the respond button to publish your NFT design. As you know, look, they both look very uniquely different, far apart from one another. I can do this 1,000 more times. They're going to look 1,000 different ways. Okay. So that's the point here of doing these digital NFT abstract design. So basically, this is the first core fundamental rule in Photoshop in learning the software by learning selections, colors, learning the environment, saving the right document formats, not just for Photoshop editing purposes, but for web, social media, and other reasons. Okay. All right. So that was that. Just to dive into a little bit what's going to happen Wednesday. What I wanted to maybe go over some of these lesson files because that's something we'll start with. Let me pause for a second and ask the class if they have any questions, and then I'm going to explain what the lesson files are. Maybe we'll start with one just to kind of get warmed up, and then Wednesday I'll leave a good amount for us to do as well. Any questions so far? Anyone? Make sure everyone can. How many of you, and just raise your hands, are doing this live with me right now? Yasemin, good. Anybody else? Okay, no problem. This is recorded, so when I do upload the video, you can partake in the lesson and follow these steps. I do want you to do this, okay? Otherwise, you won't be comfortable going forward. You want to start this as soon as you can with Photoshop. Okay, good. So let's continue then. Here. Sorry, my phone here. Gonna keep the thing. All right. I'm gonna close this one and let it open. So let's go now and look into the lesson files. So the lesson files is something that'll help us learn the application a lot better. I used to even give students notes on these lesson files. They're like steps basically. So if you open up the selections folder, which is part of the lesson files, you'll get a folder extracted called selections. Okay. This is the most fundamental way of learning the software. We have one called selecting start. Okay. And what this gives you is an actual exercise file. And this will teach you all the more intermediate fundamental selection methods. We'll put this back together and get this thing going as a fundamental rule of learning Photoshop. So this one we'll do on Wednesday. This is an actual written step-by-step documentation of the approach. So everything that we're going to be doing Wednesday, step by step, this is the actual steps. Start, head, mouth, eyes. Okay, so if you're the type that likes to read and follow handouts, this is good for you. I used to print this and hand it out to my students, but it's no longer necessary. Everything's digital, so you can just read it while you do it. Better yet, Wednesday, we're going to do this in class. And we're all going to put this melon together and learn more selection tools and techniques in Photoshop. By the following week, you're going to be that much more acquainted with the program that you can already start doing some creative work on your own. So just after 2-3 classes, from my past experience, I can see students already progressing using Photoshop. By the time we finish the semester, you'll be pretty confident using Photoshop and you can do a lot of cool things. I promise you that, as long as you follow my lead and do everything I ask you to do. All right, so the next folder here is called cutouts. This is a more advanced exercise that we're going to be creating. Again, the steps are here written step by step. We're going to go over selecting and masking. We're going to apply new images. We're going to integrate these two files here and combine them in one document. So merging documents and doing some more advanced color selection techniques is what this lesson is all about. Okay. This third one here is about just some basic advanced what's it called here? The content aware scale. So content aware scale works in collaboration with images and constraints that you want to adhere to when you do more advanced cropping techniques. So again, not really necessary. I even don't bother with this one sometimes, but just I throw it in there for added material. And finally, we have this ripped photo here where by the end of the week, you should be able to troubleshoot and put this thing back together all on your own. People do this professionally when they have ripped or destroyed evidence. You might be a private investigator, maybe the police, CSI, different levels of government. Sometimes, evidence that gets destroyed, their job is to put it back together. What better way than learning Photoshop and how to do this? Okay, so this is another this design discussion that we're going to do probably the week after next week. By then, you should be able to put this back together all on your own by using the Photoshop techniques I'm going to show you. So all in all, this lesson folder here will last us from this week and next week. We'll create all these lessons going forward. And then when we start the week after, we start developing more layer advanced techniques and methods to do those type of things as well. Okay, so that's what these lesson files are. So please download them and get them readily available for a class on Wednesday when we start this. Okay. So my goal for this Wednesday is to finish this. Okay, we're going to finish this in class. And then next week, when we meet again here in class, I'm going to cover these two, and I'm going to give you this little assignment to do as well. Okay, so this is going forward in timeline in the next 2 weeks. Now, let me show you some of the student projects that I got from last semester on some of the things you're going to be designing for the assignments and projects. I'm going to go under my Humber folder here. I'll show you the Facebook ads. So this is your first assignment for Photoshop, okay? So this is a Facebook ad that you will design all on your own using typography, images, elements of design. And this is a social media ad for Instagram or Facebook. Look, they even did a mock-up of what it would look like. Pretty nice. So mobile device or website delivery. There's another one over here. Black Friday, I guess that's what the main event was. There's another one here. There's another one over here. If you're into perfume and stuff. There's another one, WestJet, a travel ad. There's another one over here. So you produce a Photoshop file and the JPEG file. There's another one over here. Don't be intimidated when you see this. You'll be able to do this on your own, trust me. Once you learn the basic selections and stuff, techniques I'm showing you, just like these students here, they had no idea. A lot of these students didn't know what Photoshop even was. So I taught them everything, what I'm going to teach you, and you're going to be able to do this all on your own, okay? Beautiful. Some of them really, really nice job. Okay, there's another one here. Okay, so maybe I'll show you some other samples later on, but this is basically what we're aiming for you to be able to design and design in Photoshop for social media, okay, or web design for web. Humber Polytechnic College. Really nice one. I love this how they integrated typography with layers and stuff. If I open this file just to show you what it looks like, you'll see the level of design detail that's included. So for example, these are the coffee beans. Okay, this is the spray bottle. This is the typography. See that? Everything has a nice little fitted design And these are your layers. So this is the stuff you're going to learn in the upcoming weeks to be able to assemble this thing and putting an SE together. All right, so another one here. Yeah, they did well, these guys, you know, they did a nice job. Good section. Just like you guys. You do very, very nice job. All these things. Okay, so I think you saw enough examples here. This is your first assignment. I'm going to talk about this later on. I don't want to overwhelm you the first day, but if you want to start thinking about it, might as well introduce it to you now since I already kind of showed you samples. Your first assignment is your social media ad. So it's already visible for you. Okay, so you're going to be designing a social media ad. So start thinking about it now. That will be featured on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, a lot of businesses take on these channels to boost their brand or product awareness. You don't have to be an expert to start advertising on Facebook. More than 2 billion people use Facebook every month. So no matter what kind of audience you want to reach, you'll find them here. You would choose your own client. So you can pick like Nike or something, okay, any client that you like, Coca-Cola, right? Lego, and create an ad using the tools in Photoshop, which I'm going to demonstrate with the proper size requirements. Good luck and have fun. These are your project considerations. Choose an objective, select your audience. Basically, you're going to write a little paragraph to tell me what you're doing. Otherwise, I want to understand when I look at your design. Picking a design format easy. You can use Photoshop, so I don't want you to use anything else. No Figma, no XD, okay? No um what's the other one there? Oh, for crying out loud. What's the other one everyone uses online now? Anyways, it'll come to me. A JPEG format is what you want to submit for output as long as the Photoshop file is included as well. Canva, no Canva, okay? That's what I was thinking about. Everyone thinks they're a designer now because you use Canva. But the funny thing is, people can tell Canva because all the templates look the same. So please don't pull that one off, okay? Stick with the stuff I'm teaching you. 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. This is a current industry standard size for Instagram. So if you look at, let's say, hey, what's the, how big are these Instagram sizes? Instagram size ad, okay? Okay, 1080 pixels, okay? 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. Sometimes Photoshop does a little landscape, but this one works with most social media programs. So I'm kind of sticking with, the most common popular one. Then this is the expectations. So you're going to use minimum of 5 layers, including typography, various selection methods, layer blends and layer styles, Photoshop format, and you're going to submit it with Blackboard. And that's your rubric breakdown out of 10%. This is just an example I put from the Lego there, okay? So your first assignment, this is due in 2 weeks. Like I said, don't worry about it now. Just pick a theme. If I have to do a slight extension, I will, okay? Because I know we're coming in hot with this semester. But like I said, this will be enough to keep you going, and I'll give you time in class to do it as well on Wednesday. Okay. So what I want you to do now is maybe prepare yourself mentally and think of an actual theme that you can choose for your social media ad assignment. Okay. All right. So now, since we have a little time left, why don't we actually get a quick little start on this selection exercise? I really want to get a early jump on things. So let's actually go ahead and start this lesson right now. Okay. So go ahead and if you follow me, continue. Let's just get it started. And Wednesday we can wrap it up so we don't get caught behind. So we're going to create this file here. Our job is to reassemble this melon head using these shapes, and they're all fruits and vegetables. These are your steps on how to do it. I'm not going to read these steps, but let's look at the objectives so you understand what we're aiming for. Basically, the objectives are is to select parts of an image using a variety of tools, repositioning a selection marquee, deselecting a selections, move and duplicating selections, constrain movements of selections, choosing areas of an image based on proximity or color of pixels, adjust a selection with arrow keys, add and subtract from selections, rotate, scale, and transform selections, combine selection tools, cropping an image. All this stuff is what you're going to be learning how to do with this one simple exercise. I love this one. I used to do the Mr. Potato Head because that's very similar. You assemble images and cut and paste together, but this one's better because it comes with instructions and it's pretty, down to not just simple, but it's got some intermediate techniques as well that I like to cover. It talks about starting it. So you open the file, you follow these steps. You're duplicating the layer. Okay, so I'm going to follow these as close as I can, but I want to do my own spin on this. So let's go ahead and get started. And like I said, Wednesday we'll basically do it again in class, and I'll finish whatever I don't get a chance to do tonight. Okay. Let's go ahead and open this file. This is called Selecting Start. It's a PSD file. So all you have to do is double click and it'll open Photoshop for you. And there it is. Okay. I'm going to zoom in, Control plus, Control minus. I'm going to use the I guess I'll use this one here, the rectangular marquee tool. Okay, so I'm going to make a selection here, just like we did with the first thing. We're selecting an area that we want to select, okay, which is the watermelon. And I'm going to copy and paste this. See, when you copy and paste these pixels onto a new layer, Photoshop will understand that and it'll put it separate. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, edit copy, and edit paste. Okay, so copy, copy, and then paste. Look what happens when I paste. Layer one became. So layer one becomes the melon head, melon head. To name a layer, you simply double click here where the letters are to name the layer. If you double click by accident away from there, you can open up this layer style panel, which we're not going to cover just yet. This is something we'll cover later. Just cancel this and just make sure you double click in the right area to name the layer accordingly. Now, these are called visibles. This is how you can hide and show what's there, what's not there. Because I extracted that selection individually or independently, I can hide the layer behind it to show you what extracted. And to clean up this little white background, I'm going to use the magic eraser tool, because on the handout, that's the one it's pointing at. So this is called, because the eraser tool, basically, I'm using the square brackets beside the letter P to make the brush bigger, the size. Okay, this is the hardness. So you can control how big this brush is. Make sure caps lock is off. If it's on, you can't see the brush size. If it's off, you can see the brush size. So I always tell my students, turn off your caps lock. You're not yelling at everyone on your email, right? So you can then do this, and this will be really hard to do because you might not have a mouse or you're not be precise. Or you can use this one here, the magic eraser. I'll skip this one because it's for background layers. So the magic eraser tool, all you do is you click inside the white and it'll erase everything magically. You see? Pretty nice, right? Then you go back to the move tool, because the move tool lets you move this around, basically, right? Now that we understand how this works, we're going to reactivate the background layer, because everything comes from this layer. So you're going to have to do a lot of toggling back and forth. When I say toggling, I mean click here, click here, click here. You have to do that in order to address the right area. So everything we're going to grab going forward, like this orange peel and this pasta and this tomato, we're going to have to grab from this background layer. So whatever we do here and there, we go back and forth. So let's just do a few things and then we'll leave the rest for Wednesday, okay? I'm going to go to the background layer. Here it tells me elliptical marquee key, right? So I'm going to use the elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to zoom in, Command plus. Space bar always gives you the hand. Option start at center. That means if I hold option, because if I don't hold option, you're going to have to do this, right? From the left to the right. But if I hold option in the center, option or alt, you get to make the selection go from the center out, which is a nice little technique. The gentleman I showed you earlier demonstrated the same thing. Look, I left the feathering on at 20. So let me redo it. Make sure this is 0, please. 0. Let's do it again. Make sure the feather is a 0. We don't want the soft edge, right? Option click. Perfect. Okay. Make sure you're in the background layer with the proper selection formed. And then we do copy, paste. Okay. And that created another layer called layer 1. I'm going to call it orange eye. Orange eye. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to use the move tool. Remember the move tool. And I'm going to move this on top of this. But why is it not going on top? It's going behind because this layer is underneath the melon head layer. So if I reposition this on the top by dragging it, I'm now be able to do this and put it right on top of the melon head. See that? And then we zoom in, we select this, we go to edit. This is a good shortcut for you to learn. Free transform, Command T. I'm going to throw a lot of shortcuts at you. I already did copy paste. Everyone knows copy paste, Command C, Command V. But this one's a special one because it's Command T. And what that does, it lets you control the size of images in Photoshop. So if you hold shift, or you don't have to hold shift, I think, depending on your preference, you can resize this, press enter, and now you have this selected like that. Make sure this move tool, as that little tutorial I played with the turtle earlier, if not, watch it again. Make sure auto select is on to layer. By default, that's good because then you can select everything that you're clicking on, just like we did in Illustrator. All right. So copy, paste, move, select, make sure you're in the right layer. So layer orientation is important, identifying what you're selecting. Be very consciously aware of every step, okay? So let's go now back to the orange eye, because I don't know about you, but there's 2 eyes usually on this melon head. So we're going to go to the orange eye, and to copy something over, you're just going to go to the move tool. You're going to hold option or alt and just drag. Option is your universal duplicate key, just like Illustrator. I'm going to reference Illustrator a lot because we already used Illustrator in the previous class, so it'll be easier for you to kind of go forward. So here's another copy, and you can move this one here and move it wherever you like. Let's go back to the background layer because we have to grab some more stuff from here. In this case, these little things. I'm going to just zoom in, Command plus, space bar, go like that. This is going to be elliptical marquee, shift, perfect circle. Okay, elliptical marquee, shift, perfect circle. There it is, right? Move the selection perfectly. Make sure you're in the background layer because that's where everything resides, okay? I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to show you another shortcut. Instead of copy and paste, I'm going to teach you Command J. Why? Because it's on the handout. I don't want to miss out on that. So if you press Command J, it's like copy and paste in one. It'll copy and paste this into a separate layer, which I'm going to call this iris. Iris is like the eye, right? The eyeball. So I'm going to go to the move tool, and move the iris all the way, space bar, drag, drag all the way. And again, it's not in the front because I have to put the iris on top of the orange head and then move it in the front like that. Okay. I'm going to hold option to copy another one on top on the other side. And now I have a duplicate of 2 irises. I can show you the visible back and forth, the 2 orange peels for the eyes, and the melon head for the back. All this was done, me utilizing correct selection techniques, copying and pasting everything from the source, which is this background layer, and integrating the same tools I showed you earlier with the abstract exercise, utilizing just elliptical selection tools and rectangular selection tools. Okay. Now, like I said, Wednesday, I'm going to get into the more advanced tools like the lasso, magnetic lasso, elliptical marquee. We'll cover it again, okay, in a different form. We're going to use a combination of the two, magic wand and the quick mask method. Basically, all these tools that I'm going to show you is how to integrate to get this thing completed. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and maybe we'll redo this from scratch again on Wednesday, but I wanted to get a good segue into this so you can prepare, and if you want to get a head start, follow this lesson and try this all on your own. Let me just do a save as, and instead of start, I'm gonna call it work because it's work in progress. Okay, so starting work. I'm gonna save it as a Photoshop document, and that'll be saved right inside my folder. So if I close this, I can always then go back and open. This is the work file, right? And this is the continuation of my current work file. If I double click on this file, I just resume where I left off. Basically, all my layers are intact. That's because I saved the Photoshop file. If you save a JPEG by accident, JPEG flattens everything. You don't have layers in JPEG. So please be careful when you distinguish JPEGs versus, Photoshop files. This one doesn't matter because we didn't use layers, the NFTs. But this one, since we're creating a real design and creation, we're going to have to make sure we save a Photoshop file and we save, a JPEG for outputting on social media and websites and things like that. Okay. So like I said before, we're going to continue this on Wednesday. So far, we kind of started this already. Okay. So we're going to use the mouth, the eyes, and all the other stuff we're going to create as we go forward. All right. Like I said, Photoshop is one of my favorite programs next to Illustrator. Just like we did with Illustrator, we'll do in Photoshop, and you're gonna be just as good in both programs, and it's pretty good. I really enjoy teaching this class to teach you one of my favorite two applications in one semester. And I told you this stuff is being taught separately in other schools and other courses, but you guys have the privilege to learn both of them in one term, which is quite extraordinary. All right. Having said that, I'm gonna wrap up the recording now. Hope you guys enjoyed the class. We're an hour and a half in. I'm gonna give you the rest of the time to maybe ask me questions or just to kind of start your things. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Great to see everyone back. And I'll see you Wednesday in the classroom. Bye for now and have a good night. Thanks, everyone.